Welcome everybody. We're doing the Lower Yough today at like the lowest level that they allow commercial rafts to go down, which is about 1.9, in this case 1.97. Below that level, rafts aren't allowed. You may notice in this video I'm playing around with some additional editing techniques. These videos are a hobby for me, just like Whitewater is, so I'm trying to learn what else I can get away with in Premiere Pro. So if you like, don't like, whatever, let me know in the comments as always, because these videos are for y'all. What you can see here is just the walk down past the ticket office, all of that. I'm dropping my boat in the tunnel because we're going to set shuttle down to the put-in. Remember, that bus at the end of the video is just to bring you from the takeout to the parking lot, which is the takeout parking lot. So you still need to set shuttle if you're running the Lower Yough. You can always take out after a railroad and walk back up. That's the loop, so it doesn't require shuttle, but then you're going to miss River's End and a bunch of other fun rapids. So ideally, you can run it all the way to Bruner's and just set the car, shuttle, and be able to run the whole thing. Anyway, so I've gotten my tickets. Remember that you get a launch window, so I got mine for 12 p.m. It's generally like you're supposed to launch between 12 and 1, but really what it is a minimum. Once you get that 12 p.m. card, you cannot launch before then, but you can launch afterwards. You give that card to the ranger on your way in to prove that you paid, and then you'll also have a little neon wristband, and that's access to the bus to get you from the takeout to the takeout parking lot. So it's going to be a good day. I've got my Dagger Code. That's because the following day I'm going to be getting my first waterfalls out at Valley Falls on the Takeout, so I figured I'd bring a bigger volume boat, and I've never paddled the Lower Yough in this boat before, so we'll see how it goes. This is just the walk down to the put-in, and when you put in, the gauge will be right there. If you look to your right upstream, you'll see Ohiopyle Falls. If you look left downstream, you will see the run ahead of you, starting with Entrance Rapid. Side note, if you want to run the waterfall, it has to be below 1.9, not likely on a weekend because they do additional dam releases to get the rafts down. So typically you need to hit it on a weekday when it's below 1.9 feet on the gauge. You're going to need 2 other boaters with you to be present when you sign the waiver. The other 2 boaters don't have to run the falls, but they do need to either run it with you or be setting safety at or below the drop. So the reason they don't do the over the falls event anymore is because you have year-round access if the leveling conditions are right. So today I'm bringing my code. I've been paddling a lot of different boats lately. My play boat, I've been paddling my Rewind occasionally, and these are all really different boats. And so what I'm finding is that if I don't give myself a little time to warm up, my boat control is just garbage. And honestly, I don't really feel good about any of the paddling I'm doing for like the majority of this run. That's okay. I get through it. I'm learning stuff. I hit a few boofs. I mean, everything was going fine, but there's this feeling of like seeking the true control that you want to have over your boat and knowing that you're not quite there. And so if you're starting to feel this way, I recommend doing some actual warm-up moves. Try to catch some eddies, try to do some ferries, practice your roll, practice your brace, think about where your paddle's going into the water. With just a little bit of mental attention, you can do a lot of work for yourself in terms of eliminating that like early run, different boat shakiness. I cannot help who I am as a person. And so when there is that wonderful Ohiopyle photography guy standing on the rock at Cucumber under the umbrella, pointing a camera at me, I always try to think of something to do, whether it's to like throw a brown claw or point at him or do something. And I enjoy that. I imagine the next time I'm going to try and rip a big like boof right over that rock at the end of Cucumber, but I just can't resist doing this. So thanks to Ohiopyle Photography for making this run a little more interesting than it otherwise would be.
I love that.
So one of the things that I'm trying to do here is work on my boofs, because you need that for waterfalls. Camel walrus, I'm trying to boof this rock and I lose my boat angle on a wave, and I'm going so fast forward that I can't really fix it. I really wanted to approach this more left to right, so then I bounce down sideways into the hole and recover, and it's no problem. But that's all about boofing. I mean, like, timing your strokes and approaching with the correct boat angle in order to get to the place where you can actually boof is the hardest thing about boofing. It's not the actual boof stroke, it's planting it at the right time and being in the right place to execute on it. So that's what I'm thinking of basically this whole run, is trying to learn how to boof. It's not really a skill that I have yet. So by the time I get to eddy turn, I'm probably the most frustrated with myself that I'll be in the day. And so I decide, okay, like, what can I do? Let me catch an eddy and just ferry back out, make sure I know my edges and how to control them. Because when you do a specific move, an active paddling move, like trying to get to a particular eddy, you're forcing yourself to consider the role that your edges and your position and your strokes play, because there's a win-lose scenario there. If you miss the eddy, you've lost. Okay, for this part of the run, I'm finally starting to settle in, feel like I can control my boat. And that's a good thing, too, because Railroad isn't the easiest rapid on the Lower Yough. Okay, so this is like the first time Adam's ever paddled this boat, and his seat is all the way forward. So when he goes to boof this, he can't get his bow as high as he wants it to and ends up doing an epic brace. I see what he does and try to avoid doing the same thing. Okay, so there is so much space between Railroad and Dimple. There are a few unnamed rapids and little moves you can make, things like that. There's one place where you want to go right to hit some more interesting rapids, so I'll call that out. But for the most part, where you don't see the blue text indicating the name of the rapid, that just means we're in this doldrum, like chill water between Railroad and Dimple. There's also a similar kind of water at the end of the run, so you'll notice the same thing. If this is your first time getting a look at the Lower Yough, don't worry, I'm not choosing not to include stuff in here that's like consequential you really need to know about. If it's not in this video, honestly, you probably wouldn't consider it much of a hazard or a challenging rapid or anything like that. So rest easy. If it's not in the video, it's, class 1, class 2. I'm starting to feel more comfortable in my boat, but Adam wants to adjust his, understandable, so we're going to take out. And I find a Sprite can, so I pack it out with me, but I also crunch it up before just sticking it in the back of my boat. It turns out that Sprite can crumpled, had a sharp edge, which cut my float bags, and I would discover this having some trouble on the Takeout the next day. Okay, I don't think this has a name, but generally when I find myself here and I forget to hug the right-hand side of the rapid, I end up looking back at it and being like, oh man, I should have gone right. So if you want the extra excitement, go right. My understanding is that most of the people who die at Dimple have done so out of a boat. They're swimmers for the most part. The undercut size is such that if you remain in your kayak, even if you're upside down, you'll probably flush out. You just want to stay away from this thing. And typically you want to have left to right momentum. You want the bow of your kayak facing right. You want to come in right behind that pinball rock and just not even play with the idea of going straight at or really close to Dimple if you're upstream of it. All right, I'm very pleased with that eddy turn. That's exactly what you want to do to get into the pinball eddy. And what I'm going to do now is kind of ferry underneath Dimple just for fun to get a look at it and meet Adam on far river left to try and hit this little slot move. I failed myself here visually, so there's a rock and I'm on top of it, and all you got to do is remember to lean into the rock and protect your upstream edge. Just go down backwards. Everything's okay. We're just trying to make this a little more interesting, which is why we're in this eddy river left, and then we're just going to go between these two rocks and make our way down to swimmers. More bad read and run. I didn't see this thing at all. I'd need a way bigger brace than that if I was in a half slice. Thank you, Dagger Code.
That was a good one. There's a good one. Good boof that I missed.
Need better edge control if you're going to surf that. I will say, surfing swimmers in this big, almost displacement creek boat is pretty hard. Tell me if I'm just like way wrong about that or under skill, because I know plenty of people can surf this in like any boat. I'm also unsure what all that screaming is about. This is probably the best boof on the whole run. It's a nice tall one with a really prominent rock that you can line up on if you know where to start. I didn't get my boat angle exactly right. I managed to save it at the end, and I'm pretty stoked about it because it was a fun little drop, but definitely looking for better form on this one next time. Boofing is hard, y'all. Another habit I'm trying to break is this tendency to like go woo with your paddle. There's no reason to put your paddle way up above your head like that. It just makes you less ready to brace. It makes you less stable, and it puts your shoulders at risk. So like, just don't ever do that. And if you catch yourself doing it, try and remind yourself not to do it. Our brothers and sisters in rafts are a common sight, and if you don't like a crowded river, my suggestion to you is you try to pick a weekday. You never know about the level, because on the weekend they release a little more to make sure rafts can get down. Or just put in at like 8 a.m. for your first run. That's the easiest way to solve for this. If you're not a morning person, then best of luck to you. Frankly, my intention here was to go past as much of the traffic as I could, just because I really didn't feel like dodging obstacles around this downhill plunge through 2 hydraulics, Pick your own adventure. Double H. H refers to the hydraulics. There's 2 of them pretty much in a row. Basically, you're going to work your way river left towards this big outcropping of rocks, and then you're going to want to go just right of it. You'll see what it looks like in the video, but basically the first hydraulic is something like welcome wave around 3.2 at low tide on the Potomac. It's a pretty big hole. This one is consequential to screw up. I don't think you want to flip over there. It's very rocky. It's very shallow, especially at just under 2 feet here. The second hydraulic is, no big deal. You can really, as long as you get your bow up, you can blast straight through it. And the most important difference between that first hydraulic and something like Welcome Wave on the Potomac is that I think Welcome Wave is probably a little more chill in terms of flipping over, given what's underneath it. So if you're not confident in your ability to keep your bow high and dry and punch over that hole with speed, I'd recommend going around it. And for your first try, punch the second hydraulic, not the first one. Again, my form was not great. Thank you, Dagger Code. All that bow rocker really eats this stuff up as long as I'm going fast enough. So do as I say, not as I do. My favorite rapid, River's End. At 2.5, this is an absolute gem. At this level, you really need to go hard left, because if you hug the right, basically after that initial rock, you'll run into Snaggletooth. There's a bunch of shallow rocks there that will stop a boat if you're too far right, and even the middle is a little too far right. So I was kind of feeling my boat control at this point. My intention is to execute an aggressive eddy turn around the corner, which I do, and then peel out back into the flow to finish it up. I'm trying to simulate the kinds of things I might experience on the Upper Yough, which is a run I'm hoping to get in the next year or so if I can. I'm feeling pretty good about how I controlled myself in this rapid. I'm making intentional choices, ferrying back and forth, eddying out, and I really do feel in pretty much complete control here. It's not the hardest rapid in the world, but it's a far cry from how I felt when I started the run. Quick reminder that you can boof a wave by ripping a huge forward stroke at the top of it. Schoolhouse is one of those rapids where you can kind of do whatever you want. Go left of the rock, go right of the rock, pick your own way down. And while that's fun, and go ahead and do it that way if you want to, it can be useful to give yourself a line in your mind's eye and really try to stick to it. That's going to give you some active paddling experience and maybe maximize the value of this rapid to your paddling progression. like I say, I cut out most of the fluff, but for these no-named rapids, I tried to include some of the stuff that you can do, little boofs here and there, little turns, stuff that you can enjoy on your way down. No need to just float through this stuff. A little active paddling, even in these riffles, can be rewarding.
Here.
It's like
This is actually my third time paddling the Lower Yough. The first was at 2.5. The second was at almost exactly this level, 1.96 or so. And so the last time I did Killer Fang Falls backwards, as you are supposed to do. Tradition dictates. And I was in my rewind that time. This time I'm doing it in my code. I take a few backstrokes to speed up. It's a good time, and really there's nothing else here. So if you don't do Killer Fang Falls or you don't do it backwards, there's always more to try the next time you find yourself there.
All good.
I had a bunch of speed coming in.
All right.
Jeez.
There's all these little things that I like about kayaking, and one of them is these satisfying little eddies tucked behind big boulders. My home river is the Potomac, and so we have no shortage of these like big rocks, but I still love feeling like a hobbit from Lord of the Rings, like hiding in those little eddies. Also because it seems like most people wouldn't be able to even experience a place like that unless they were on the river. So I know we all love it, but that's one of the things that really makes it a special sport for me. Brunner is the last rapid, and one final chance for me to demonstrate how incompetent my read and run is. So basically I know that I'm trying to start left and make my way right, and at some point there's a big rock that kind of the meat goes left of, and I just couldn't see the rock for whatever reason until the last moment when I'm on top of it. But, you know, the code is forgiving, and I have some decent reactions here, and everything's fine, but boy, I gotta work on that. That's all she wrote, folks. This is the Takeout. Takeout's river left, walk up. The first parking lot's a decoy. It's for rafters only. The second parking lot is where you're going to wait for the bus. You're going to exchange your wristband for a ride to the third lot, which is where you parked to set shuttle. And from there you can go. Don't forget to tip the bus driver and have a great time.